Thank you so much for being here tonight. Welcome to Slammer of the Year 2025. I am your host, Jody Eichelberger. Thank you so much for being here. I was joking earlier that Boiseans think that they're made out of cotton candy, and if there's any threat of moisture, they're like, I can't go outside, I might melt. We are very grateful, just to start things off. This is our final event as the City of Boise Cultural Ambassador. This is it tonight. Yep, we took it to the very last day. The mayor chose Story Night to celebrate everyday Boiseans and the diversity of our city, and part of the mission of Boise to create a city for everyone. And after tonight, at the stroke of midnight, we turn into pumpkins, and the Boise Phil is going to take over for us for the next 2 years. They're the new cultural advancer, Boise Phil. Yeah, so that's cool. I also want to thank our Story subscribers. Raise your hand if you're a Story subscriber. There, I know you guys. Yes, yes. Thank you so much. These are people who are sustaining members. They have a renewing contribution every month, and included in that are tickets to our seasons of shows. And the way that you can become a Story subscriber is just going to our website, storynight.org, click on supporters, and then there's another button that says become a subscriber. And that's how you get into the system. You have your own little account. You can see what tickets you've ordered if you've forgotten. And we'll see you at hopefully even more shows, which would be lovely. This show celebrates our season of stories from this last year, and especially those brave individuals who we call slammers, who sometimes show up thinking, ooh, I have a great story for this theme. And sometimes they're just in the audience and just suddenly get an idea. And they're like, I'm going to put my name in the hat and see what happens. And then they come up on stage, and sometimes it's the best story we've had all night. And sometimes we're wondering, how did they think that that was a good thing to share at the microphone? But it's only 5 minutes long, and so we can all survive 5 minutes. And we just love the spontaneity of that. And all of the folks that you see behind me on the stage were people who did this during the season. They stuck their name in, and they got called up to come up on stage and share a story. And our team captains back there selected the standout storytellers from the season that they wanted on their team. And now they're back to battle our only competition show of the year to be named Slammer of the Year. Now, this last season we had a bunch of different shows. It began last October at the Visual Arts Collective with host Beth Norton. And those were all themes based on songs from The Doors. So we started with People Are Strange. And I think we have a couple of storytellers from that show, People Are Strange. And then we had Light My Fire. And then we ended with The End, appropriately enough. And then we began our flagship season, which was all based on chess pieces. There are 6 chess pieces, and we had 6 shows. So we started with Queen, and then we had King, Rook, Knight, Bishop, Pawn. That sounded like 5. Didn't I say Rook? Knight? Did I say Knight? Anyway, you know what they are. Then we had our special 15th anniversary show that we went back to the Shrine. We used to call it El Cora. Now it's the Shrine Social Club. That was hosted by Jessica Holmes, and one of the storytellers here tonight is from that show as well. Then we continued our late night show right on the other side of the wall over here at the old Idaho Penitentiary in the Women's Ward. And those shows were hosted by Alicia Donahue, and they were Hot Mess, Stories of Getting Sloppy, and Lock Her Up, Stories of Getting Schooled. And we have some storytellers from those shows as well. So all those seasons are represented up here. And now tonight, Reap What You Sow. And this is our first time having a show here at the Idaho Botanical Garden. We've never had a show here before. So, yes, beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. And we thought, our first time at the garden, it makes sense to do a theme related to gardening, so we have Reap What You Sow. Now, one of the common things that people sow are children, and I do not have kids. This is when my mom is here tonight. She sowed me, she and my dad. Continues to reap and reap and reap. And I asked her, this is one of the disadvantages, my poor mom. of having a person who is an MC and a writer is our personal stuff just gets launched out into the stage all the time or in a book. But I one time had the idea of asking her what her favorite time of life was. And of course, I thought she was going to say, it was during my childhood. That was her favorite time of life. Raising me, of course. No, her favorite time of life was when she was a child and someone else was raising her. So anyways, I guess the reaping is more fun than the sowing, maybe. At least in that case. Maybe it's just me. I don't know. We have 2 teams tonight, and they've come up with their own names. Let's say hello to a couple of them. Here is the John Deeres. And just so you know, that is spelled D-E-A-R-S, the John Deeres. And then, isn't that sweet? And then on the other side of the stage, we have the Jolly Ranchers. Now, you were each given a pumpkin seed when you checked in. I asked for the jumbo seeds, but they're still quite small. And the reason we do that we want everyone to vote. We believe in democracy, but as we are in the United States, we're also making it as difficult as possible. So keep track of that seed. Okay. And then that'll come into play at intermission. The members of the winning team are going to move on to the second round and compete as individuals. And then one of them will win the title of Slammer of the Year and a very special trophy that's also connected to sort of garden agricultural inspiration. I'm going to reveal it now. Here it comes. Thank you. This was made by an artist, I believe in Nampa, by the name of Ron Swank, and it is made out of a gourd. It has a tag on it that says, it has the Story Night logo and says Slammer of the Year 2025, a sweet little tulip on the front, but it's not just a gourd, everyone. This is a thunder gourd. Tonight is a rematch of the team captains who last faced off 5 years ago in 2020 Slammer of the Year double feature. Patti O'Hara and Jessica Holmes, come on up here. Make your way they have to go around the moat, climb over the rocks, and then they come over this little bridge up to the microphone. Very good. So, yes. All right. Patti is back to challenge Jessica. How are you feeling tonight? How are you feeling about your teams?
Jolly good for mine. Yeah.
Jolly good. Yes.
Oh, I see. You're from down under.
Down under, you bad right. Yes, mate.
Oh
and your tongue is looking really red. Have you been sucking on Jolly Ranchers?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay. And how about you, Jessica? How are you feeling?
I'm feeling good, but Patti won last time. Patti's a really good storyteller. She intimidates me, I have to say.
But I'm not telling any stories.
But I have no accent, so.
All right.
Neither do I.
So first we have to decide which team is going to go first. And
Okay.
as I mentioned, all of these people received a pumpkin seed when they came to the show, and it was inside. I'm supposed to have the jack-o'-lantern with the pumpkin seeds right now. Is anyone within earshot close to the jack-o'-lantern full of pumpkin seeds? If you are, please run the jack-o'-lantern full of pumpkin seeds to the stage. All right, we'll see if it comes. So what we're going to do to decide which team goes first is you each have to guess how many pumpkin seeds are in the jack-o'-lantern. And whoever's closest gets to choose if they go first or if they pass. Now, this might have been a little easier if you could see the jack-o'-lantern with the pumpkin seeds in it, rather than just imagining any random jack-o'-lantern with pumpkin seeds. But I am sensing somebody, some savior, running over here from the right. It's Becky, everyone. Becky, our volunteer. All right, so here is the leftover. Now, the other thing that's going to make this challenging is we've already now, and so this is just what's left. They all have one pumpkin seed in their pocket. So you have to add whatever's in here with how many pumpkin seeds are out there. And,
Are you serious?
and give me a number. The total number. Yeah, the total number. Because believe it or not, for this bit, I counted each and every one of the pumpkin seeds.
Oh my God.
So I know the number.
You go first.
Okay.
Oh. Sometimes Jody's creativity really astounds me. How you came up with this, I do not know.
I stay awake at night.
I'm guessing 783.
Okay.
Oh,
All right.
yeah.
Where are you, Patty?
I was going to say 822.
822.
822. Yeah.
Okay. The actual number of pumpkin seeds is, it's a 1 pound bag of pumpkin seeds, jumbo size, remember. 1,472 pumpkin seeds. So, Patty, is your team going to go first, or do you want to pass it?
We will go second.
You're going to pass it over to... Okay, all right. So you think about who you want to send up first. I'll be with you in a second. Go consort with your
right.
teammates. I have a couple more seeds to eat. And then... All right, thank you. Okay. Now, in this... Yeah, you can go talk. You can go back to your team.
Oh, I
Yeah,
do. I
and then
thought I
I'll-
told you.
Oh, you know who it is. All right, stay here, and then you can tell us. Tell us who it is. All right. I don't want you to argue up there because the farmer and the cowman, we want them to be friends, like you and Patty. Patty's the cowman.
Okay.
Okay.
Australian.
All right. So in this first round, you're going to listen to all 10 stories. They're all 5 minutes long, and we'll alternate turns from one team to the next. And then you're going to vote on your favorite team of storytellers by planting your pumpkin seed in one of these pots over here. They're labeled with the team names. And then our volunteers will count them quickly during intermission. And listening from their tables will be our judges over here. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome from closest to me to over to the left, we have Daniel Murphy. He is the plant collections curator for the Idaho Botanical Garden. Thank you, Daniel. And then in the middle of the table there is Amber Byerly, who is the executive director of the Boise Farmers Market. And not necessarily, so those were all pretty related to plants. Very related to plants. So to round things out, we have Soraya Mazlumi, who is a bread slinger at Acme. Bread comes from a plant. Yeah, you're right. That's the connection. It's wheat. Each storyteller is strictly held to 5 minutes. Their time begins with their first word, and then as they come to their last 30 seconds, I will start moving toward them. If they hit the limit, we're going to hear from the Thunder Gourd, ladies and gentlemen, and that will cut them off at time. All right, so who are we going to start the show with?
Josh Gaines.
Joshua Gaines, very good. Now, Josh Gaines, cheat sheet, is from People Are Strange, and he told a story about getting water with vodka with a bearded Russian man in a shack in Kazakhstan.
Kazakhstan will take place in Act 2 again tonight.
Is that your first word?
Well, yeah, go for it. All right, so this is a story where I'm going to sow a white lie to hopefully reap some love. Who hasn't done that? We've all done that before. Now, I wasn't always this average height drink of water that you see before you. I got to rewind a little bit. So I had an elementary school life that can only be characterized as stereotypical of TV. I grew up in a tiny town in eastern Washington on a wheat and barley farm, in a town with one stoplight, and I was the furthest from the town. Our farm, I was the first kid on the bus, and I was the last kid off the bus at the end of the day. Now, you might think, all right, small town, this guy's going to figure it out. Being into Star Wars and J.R. Tolkien and not doing any sports was not in my favor. So things were rough, right? Things were rough. Things were not going great. My dad tried. He had this to work with. It didn't go well. So things are progressing. I'm getting older. I get my license. That helps a little bit. I've got the car. I'm trying really hard. But one holiday, it was a Christmas, my parents are like, you're going to go get grandma with dementia, bring her back for Christmas dinner. And I'm like, I can do this. I can drive over the mountains. I'm going to go to that, green side of Washington. I'm going to pick up grandma. This was back when you had to print Rand McNally on paper. You guys that are my age and older, you know what I'm talking about. It was crazy. I was terrified. I was scared of going clothes shopping when I was a kid. I got anxiety from getting like 2 miles away from the farm or the town of 1,000 people I had. But I was locked in, as the young people say, and I was going. I was going to pick up grandma. No big deal with grandma. I get grandma. I got my little 1994 Honda Prelude. She's got dementia. She's looking for her cigarettes, and I'm wandering around the house, and I find my uncle's bedroom. So my uncle, a bit of a character, he's one of those guys that just decided to go move to the San Juan Islands with a Barrett 50 cow because he was worried the government was coming from him. So his bedroom was like a time capsule from 1976, right? So I walk in there, I'm looking at the posters, I'm looking at the clothes, and like this moment just hits me like, I can just rebrand myself a little bit, maybe go a little vintage. This is a moment where I'm like, I don't have to be this nerdy Star Wars reading kid on the farm. I'm like, I'm gonna grab the bell bottoms, those are coming. Disco polka dot shirt with the huge lapels, John Travolta, you know what I'm feeling? I'm doing that. Leather jacket, that's happening. I'm grabbing all this stuff and I'm feeling a little bit of guilt. But to be fair, my uncle is now 350 pounds, but I could fit into his old stuff. So I'm like, he's not gonna miss this. He's not gonna miss this. So I grab grandma, I head back, I survived the last years of high school, and to the surprise of no one, got a scholarship to go to Scholars Hall at a nerdy university. Now, my hall happened to be the hall for nerds that was a fraternity that lost their charter. So there I am, surrounded by frat boys and sororities as like a nerdy scholars kid, right? So I'm like, nah, rebranding. It's a different guy. I'm doing it. Now, I struggled a little bit in college, like a lot of us do. Some of the majors don't work, but eventually I settled on elementary education. Now, elementary education has one advantage if you're a dude, right? Okay, you get into those classes, it's like 84 girls and 2 guys. So obviously there was a beautiful blonde in one of these classes, right? Straight up 10 out of 10. Now I am trying so hard. I'm wearing the bell bottoms. I've got the disco shirt. I've got corduroy that I got. I bought the motorcycle. I got a Honda Shadow Nighthawk situation 500. I'm smoking American Spirits because they're the healthy cigarettes. And I'm trying so hard, right? I'm just all in for this, right? And there's this girl in this class with me. She doesn't know I'm staring at her out of the 85 girls there. I'm just looking at her. And one day, she happens to be at the garbage bar next to where I lived with my idiot roommates, which I'm so grateful she didn't know that I lived with at the time. So I'm at a bar, because this is before you could swipe on stuff, guys. You had to go out there and lie to people to their face about who you were, right? This was a rough time. But you know what? I'm looking at my 2 roommates, and they're 2 guys that would hang out with a guy like me in, freshman year of college. So I'm like, I'm going to walk over to that girl. I'm going to go talk to that girl. And they're like, no, you're not. I'm like, I'm going to do it. Now, of course, I've been drinking, so I had the courage. I'm like, I'm going to go do it. And I walk over to this wonderful young woman, this beautiful blonde lady. We get to talking. It's going great. I get invited to a birthday party the next day. One thing leads to another. We're moved in together. Everything's great. It's rainbows, butterflies, and everything's great. Now, those of you that have been married for a long time or have had partners for a long time, especially the men, you ever get asked a question and at the time you don't realize that it's a trap? But it's a trap, and you're like, oh, I screwed this up. So I'm living with this wonderful, beautiful, lovely, lovely woman, and I am trying so hard to fake that I am cool and not afraid of everything. I'm afraid of everything. So casually, we're just sitting on the couch. No big deal. She's just like, blinks beautifully. She's like, do you like travel? I was scared to go school clothes shopping. I was like, sure, I like travel. What I didn't know was that within a year from that day, I would be running from Kazakh police officers from an incident which she started, which she would later get me out of. So if you want to find out how and why that ends, vote for John Deere, and we will reap that story.
Thank you, Josh. All right. Team Jolly Ranchers. That was a powerful start. Who are we going to send down? Oh, Patty's wrangling her storyteller. Here he comes. It's Sky, who's from Hot Mess this season. He told a story that was involving chili, but the country, not the plant. Okay, I gotta raise this.
That was kind of you, Jody, to not share too many details on that. Flashbacks. It's doing a little swivel.
The red light's not working, so I just come up on your side.
Oh, okay. That's great. I am wearing a 40-pound, head-to-toe, thick, layered suit. And there's barely any ventilation. And I'm hoping that today is not the day that I traumatize someone's childhood. Because today, I am Dobie the Dolphin, Roaring Springs 6-foot Disney-style mascot. And my 16-year-old self is viewing the world through this red face screen and these large dolphin lips, and I'm waddling with these large boots that look like a penguin who regrets everything. And due to the lack of mobility and the unexpected reactions from the public, I have a coworker and a guide who is my buddy, Brian, a curly-haired guy, and he's gonna keep me safe. However, he's most likely to abandon me for a churro. Now, there's two reactions that children have. They either run up with joy and grab my fin for a high fin 5, or run for their lives. Now, Brian's steering me towards these happy children, and I spot what appears to be these two muscular uncles, and they're dragging their 9-year-old nephew hand in hand, and they drag him up to me, and they're like, "Come on, buddy, you can't be scared of this walking fish. There's nothing to fear." And so I offer my fin, and I lower it down just a little bit. There's no response. So I go just a little bit lower, and now my mouth is hovering just an inch above his head. So I bend down and grab him over the head and I go, "Arr, arr, 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 arr." And the kid bolts like he's being chased by a velociraptor. And my giggles soon fade because there are two muscle-bound uncles who are well within their capacity to make this dolphin not tuna safe. Now, maybe I gave their nephew some sort of dolphin PTSD. What if he thinks of Flipper, SeaWorld, or what about that dolphin Winter who has a prosthetic tail just chasing him forever? Now, I pull up my mouth and I don't see the uncles, but there's Brian who pushes me just to the left, and there they are, bent over, grabbing a patio table, slapping it, roaring with laughter. Now, later in the season, Dobie gets an upgrade. He gets this white sailor cap with red stitching that runs across the head right there. And I asked Brian, I say, "Hey, Brian, would you be interested in going for a spin in the evening when the park's just a little bit quieter?" And he says, "Well, yeah, all right." And I put on the suit, and I'm walking along, being the dolphin, and then I hear it. "Hey, Doobie." My name's Dobie. This might not be good. So I turn, and there he is, the kid. The same one with these eyes, but they had this determination like a boxer getting ready to enter a championship bout. And he comes up, clenches a fist, and cocks it back. And with all his 9-year-old vengeance, he lands a punch directly on my flipper walnuts. I crumble, and I'm slowly gathering myself as I see him slip away into the lazy river like he's SEAL Team 6. And I'm getting my breath back. And here comes Brian, casually walking up with a bowl of Dippin' Dots. And he's like, "Hi, bud. Why y'all bent over there, huh?" It's like, I just got punched. Oh, yeah, you probably deserve that, huh?
Thank you, Sky. Maybe it's because I'm sitting next to this jack-o'-lantern over here, but I was just thinking, wouldn't that be a great little epitaph on those fake graveyards at Halloween that just says left for a churro. That'd be really cool. Okay, who are you gonna send up to compete against that? Okay. Coming up to the microphone now, we have Paula Murphy from Rook. A story of trying to grow a relationship through online dating at what she calls apps for saps.
I have two mottos. One, I am competent and resourceful, and I can fix this, whatever this may be. Two, that which does not kill us makes for a great story later. I'm about to live out those mottos because tomorrow I am leaving on a 7-month road trip in my 1994 Japanese van with my 6-year-old Bernedoodle. Where are we going? I don't know. But the story I want to tell you is about a road trip that I took last summer for my 54th birthday. I planned it all out. I was going to go to North Idaho. I was going to go mountain biking, ride the Hiawatha Trail, and go to Under the Big Sky Music Fest. 3 days before departure, I say to my newly unemployed, almost 19-year-old son, "Would you like to go?" And he said yes. That was not what I planned. I thought for sure he'd say no. But this is an opportunity, right, for me to sow the relationship with my adult son. And when am I ever going to get a road trip with my son again? Maybe never. So I'm excited and I want this to happen, and I'm willing to change my plans in order to accommodate him, right? Including taking the dogs, the Bernedoodle, and the 14-year-old Yorkie, who has one tooth, one eye, and dementia. It's not ideal. Yeah. So the thing I don't want to give up, though, is riding the Hiawatha Trail, because I hear it's beautiful and I really want to do it. So I talk to my son and I say, "Hey, we're going to run through tunnels, and we're going to go over train trestles, and we're going to ride through the woods, and it's 15 miles all downhill." And he says, "I'm in." Well, great. We're going to ride the Hiawatha Trail on Thursday, which is my actual birthday. He learns to ride a bike on Tuesday. Not ideal. Yeah, but he's in for it, and we go. So we leave on the trip, and our first night out, we camp, and I sleep in the van with the old dog, and he sleeps in the tent with the young dog, and he gets like 60 mosquito bites. I'm not even exaggerating. He was miserable. So the second night, he sleeps in the van, and I sleep in the tent, and I get 0 mosquito bites. How is that possible? I don't know. The next day, we go to ride the trail. Now, the beginning of the trail, the first mile or so, is a mile-long tunnel, right? So you have your little headlights because it's really dark in there, and you have your hoodies on because it's really cold in there, and you have the ponchos, those cheap little plastic ponchos on top of you because it's super muddy and splattery, and it's crazy. And we ride it, and we get to the end, and my son is stoked, and I'm stoked, and it's working, this relationship sewing, right? And he says, "Yeah, my butt's kind of sore." Mile 1. Cool, right? Cool. So I give him my bike because the saddle's a little more comfortable, and we continue to ride. And genuinely, we do have a lovely time together. It was a great ride. You get to the end, and you load up on a bus, and they take you back to the beginning. Or so I thought. They take you back to the end of that mile-long tunnel. So now you get to do it again, except now we only have one headlight. Cool. So he rides behind me with the headlight so it illuminates my path as well, right? And we can see what's going on. And we're about a quarter mile in, and all of a sudden the light is gone and the crashing sounds happen, and he goes, "Wah!" And I say, "Oh my God, what happened?" And he said, "What do you think happened? I crashed." Now, my son is the nicest person you'll ever meet. So if he talks to me like that, things are not okay. Now, he wasn't broken, but he had a lot of road rash on top of 60 mosquito bites. We walked the rest of the tunnel in silence. And we got to the car, and I said, "Hey, how about we get a hotel?" And he said, "Yes, please." And we went to a cheap hotel where I spent the rest of my birthday with my son and his really sore butt and my dogs, who were totally dejected from being in a really horrible kennel all day, and my son's 60 mosquito bites covered in calamine lotion and road rash. It was fantastic. Now, if you think that that was enough to foil this entire road trip, then you do not understand Paula-level stubbornness. Okay, remember, I'm competent and resourceful, and I can fix this. If you're curious what it might take to actually destroy this road trip, then you should cast your vote wisely for the John Deeres.
Paula Murphy from the John Deeres. I had a friend ask me to hike up Mount Fuji with him. I had no preparation, big rucksack. There are 10 stations. I made it to station 5 and vomited. Okay, who are you sending up? Oh, here she comes. Ladies and gentlemen, next up for Team Jolly Ranchers is Molly Metler from Bishop, a story about reaping the benefits of a bishop who was a former Major League Baseball player.
Buckle up. This is going to get a little woo-woo. I believe in manifestation. That's taking your deepest desire and, like a seed, throwing it up into the heavens to be planted into the garden of the universe, and you see what blooms. I was 24 when I learned about manifestation. I had been given a book called The Magic of Findhorn. Findhorn is a New Age spiritual community in Scotland where people came from all over the world to meditate and to manifest enormous vegetables. I thought this was so cool that I wanted to go to Findhorn too. So I tried out this idea of manifestation. I took the seed of this desire and I flicked it up into the universe. And I said, boy, I really want to go to Findhorn. At age 25, that seed sprouted. And I was gifted a completely free to me trip to Scotland. I spent 2 weeks at Findhorn. It was pure magic, and I couldn't wait to get back. I still didn't have any money to spend on things like this, so I flicked the seed up into the garden, and I said, I really need to come back here. At 26, I see a movie called My Dinner with Andre. Basically, two men having a very deep conversation over bowls of potato soup. One of the men was Wallace Shawn, who went on to fame as the character in The Princess Bride, who's always saying, "It's inconceivable." The other one was Andre Gregory, a playwright and a director who was very mystical. And in the movie talked about his experiences at Findhorn. And I was smitten. And I said, what I wouldn't give to have a conversation with Andre Gregory. 3 months later, I'm on a flight from LA to New York. I'm sitting in my seat, and down the center aisle comes none other than Andre Gregory. And then he comes up to my row and he sits down next to me. That's inconceivable. I basically yell at him, "Mr. Gregory, I've seen your film 3 times, and I've been to Findhorn too." And he lights up, and we put our heads together and have a nonstop conversation for 5 hours about our work, our family, our friends, our faith, and about Findhorn. It's like my own private dinner with Andre. We get in a cab together, go into the city, swap contact information, and swear undying friendship. When I get home, I write him a very nice letter. Does he respond? Nah, he totally ghosted me. 2 years later, I'm going back to Findhorn. That seed has sprouted itself. And I'm excited because I'm going to a conference, and Andre Gregory is the keynote speaker. And I'm really, I hope he remembers me. I don't think he will, but I hope he remembers me. And I'm sitting in my apartment waiting for the airport cab to take me to catch my flight. And the phone rings. Hello? Molly, this is Andre Gregory. I opened up my briefcase and your name and telephone number fell out. I thought I'd give you a call. And I start yelling at him again. Andre, I can't believe this. I am on my way to Findhorn this very day, and I'm going to see you there. And he said, sorry, I had a conflict, so I canceled. But enjoy yourself, and would you do me a favor and say hi to my friend Tom? Well, I went to Findhorn. I had a great time. I met his friend Tom, and a whole host of other stories happened, but that's for another time. I am now 71 years old, and I have had almost 50 years of sowing stories, and I've got 3 seeds planted: happiness, health, and regime change.
Thank you, Molly. All right, yeah, we should make time for regime change, probably. All right, moving back over to our team John Deere's. Looks like we've got our friend coming up here, Rich Rahill from my own private Idaho, who told a story that weeded out a troublesome resident of Idaho City via murder.
On August 21st, 1992, a reconnaissance team of U.S. Marshals were sent to Ruby Ridge to plan a future arrest of Randy Weaver. And things went sideways almost from the start. By the end of the day, a U.S. Marshal, Billy Deegan, was dead. Sammy Weaver, their 14-year-old son, was dead, and Sammy's dog Stryker was dead. An 11-day siege followed, and at the end of that, Randy Weaver had been shot, Kevin Harris had been shot, and Vicky Weaver had been shot dead. 90 miles east of there, in Whitefish, Montana, I was on a bike ride with some friends, and bits and pieces of the story came out, and I put together enough information to realize this was going to be my boss's case. He's a federal judge, Edward Lodge, and I was going to be at the center of whatever this thing turned out to be. And I had no idea what was in store for me. So I go back to Boise, and that we're ready for trial. The day before trial, one of the prosecutors goes into the courtroom, and I look through a one-way mirror, and he's in there testing chairs. He goes all around the room and tests all the chairs. He finds one he likes, he brings it over and sets it down where he's going to sit. In the morning, we start jury selection. And by noon, there had been 3 bomb threats. I get a note, I read the note, I hand it to the judge, he reads the note and sets it down. He never stopped. So the next day is opening statements. And Jerry goes last, Jerry Spence. And he's doing, he's an actor. And so he's doing this thing where he's impersonating Vicki Weaver, holding her baby at the time that she shot, and he's emotional. And so the chair tester rocks back violently in his chair, and this wild squeak comes out, and Jerry goes like this. Everybody, it was an unexpected noise, and the prosecutor said, "Those better not be tears." And he said, "What?" And he repeated, "Those better not be tears." And Judge Ladd said, "Sustained." It was argument. And so that was a very dramatic start to the thing, and I thought this could be a wild ride. And so the next thing, the jury's set, and we move on toward trial. And tempers and tensions rise and fall. Jerry's a seasoned trial lawyer, and he's trying to probe and poke at Judge Lodge to find a weakness to get him to react in order to create error. And so the lawyers are bickering, and things are just tense. So I pass a note to the judge, and I said, "Let's take an early lunch." And so we did. So I go to the chambers next door, and they have a ceremonial gavel. And it's about this long, has a head on it about that side. And we go back into the courtroom, and the judge has it on this side of his robes. You can't see it. And he steps up onto the bench, and he swings it over his shoulder. And everybody thinks this is the funniest thing they've ever seen. Tension just washes right out of the room. And Jerry is watching the judge, and he nods. And after that, the tension never really came back. And Jerry never probed him again. It was a nice path toward the end. So so we get to the point there. We go through trial. The prosecution puts on its whole case, and we get to the point where it's the defense turn. So Jerry rises up, and he says, and all of the defense lawyers rise with him, and he says, "The defense rests." And people are floored. They're flabbergasted. So I go out in the hallway. He's walking up, and he says, "What'd you think of me resting without calling a single witness, without putting on any evidence?" And I said, "It's not really my place to say." And he says, "You're damn right, it's not your place to say." And he said, "It took guts like you couldn't believe to make that call." So we get to the point now where we're going to do jury instructions, and the judge is going to send it to the jury. And so once that starts, the judge calls us all into chambers, and Jerry says, "Are you going to sequester the jury?" And he says, "Yes." "Are you, the marshal's going to do it?" He says, "Yes." And he says, "Who's going to guard the marshals?" He said, "What do you have in mind?" And he points at me and says, "Him."
Whoa. Okay. Thank you. I cannot get on a jury. I've never selected. The first time was in Portland. They asked me what I did for a living. I said I'm a puppeteer, and they said you're dismissed. All right, Patty's up, coming with her next competitor. Hey, we're halfway through our storytellers already. Can you believe it? This is our second set. Moving on, and Team Jolly Ranchers, we're coming up with Gregory Schmidt from Hot Mess. He told a story about being in charge of little sprouts as a counselor at a camp.
It is the end of summer, and myself and two of my best friends are getting ready to go on a backpacking trip on the Lost Coast Trail that we've been looking forward to all summer long. We're just about to go back to college, so this is an extra special moment, and we're pretty novice, and we've been going back and forth on a whole lot of things leading up to this trip, but we think we're super prepared. The Lost Coast Trail has these impassable zones, and the impassable zones basically mean that during high tide, the water is crashing up against these tall basalt cliffs, and you're not able to get around them. Day one goes all right. We get through the first one. And day two, we are a little bit behind schedule, but we figure, things are going all right on day one, so we'll go ahead and push forward. About halfway through this very long impassable zone, we start to realize that the waves are coming in, and we're kind of starting out by just waiting until they go back out and then running around the next corner. And every corner we come around, the cliff looks farther and farther. This impassable zone is very extended. Eventually, we're scaling up the side of this basalt cliff wall, and we're standing on these pillars, and my buddies are looking at me with this nervous laughter, like, what's the plan here? And eventually I remember, we had just passed one small little cove where the high tide mark didn't quite go all the way up to the cliff. So we retreat, and we go back there, and I kind of assess the scene, and I think this is a great spot to sit out the tide cycle. So we do just that. We sit there, my friend breaks out his ukulele. Again, we've got an abundance of stuff. We watch the whole tide come in and out, and by the time that high tide is finally retreated, the sun's starting to go down. We eat our dinner, and we set off on this basically night hike to get to our mileage goal for the end of day two. It's a beautiful August evening. The sky is perfectly clear, and the moon is on the rise, and we have no need for our headlamps. So we're walking along, and everything's going really great. And I notice something off in the distance, about a football field away. I look up, I shine my headlamp over in that direction, and that prompts the same reaction from my two buddies. Now we've got 3 headlamps on this giant bear-looking creature hovering over a mound. This bear animal proceeds to get up on hind legs and stand there for a very unusual amount of time. This is very intimidating. We kind of stand there in silence. I start clapping, I'm whistling. Eventually it retreats to all fours and runs off towards this heavily wooded ravine where there's a freshwater stream coming out, and it's the first little bit of change in topography since we came out of the impassable zone. I, kind of being the leader in the group and most experienced in some ways at that time, advance down towards the water and kind of separate from my buddies, and I get directly perpendicular with where we last saw this creature. I'm still clapping and whistling, and I'm looking where I last saw this animal, and I'm waiting for my friends to catch up when something passes right before my headlamp and goes splat right at my feet. I immediately look down. My first instinct is to immediately look up. Again, it's a perfectly clear August night, and there's nothing to explain what just landed at my feet. There's no owls, pelicans, etc. I look down again, and at this point, my headlamp's going like this. And my friends walk up to me and they go, "What's going on? You look like you've seen a ghost." And I point down at the pile of intestinal material. It's about the size of a large palm. And I say, "I don't really know what happened, but that landed at my feet," and I'm, talking really fast. And there's this silence before all of a sudden I hear shh. And in front of me, I see this cloud of spray that comes out in front of my face before it catches the wind and blows directly right back to where it came from. And that was bear spray out of my friend's can of bear spray that he wanted to make sure worked just in case. I've now got bear spray in 2 of my best friends' eyes, and I start to shepherd them over to where that freshwater ravine comes out, where they are rubbing it in and only making things worse, and they're screaming in agony. And they've totally forgotten about everything that's gone on in the moment. I get them set, and I go back to check things out with that mound where that silhouette was. And I walk over, and there's this meticulously filleted carcass of a seal that is there. It has been tended to in a very interesting way. It hasn't had birds poking at it. It looks like very fresh, and it looks like it is something that someone would be very displeased to leave. I mosey my way back to my friends, and we're kind of questioning all of this. They're just trying to get to their feet. We have to get to camp. And I'm sitting there thinking that night in the tent as they're all trying to fall asleep. We had 3 different stoves, 3 different water filtration systems, rock climbing shoes, an abundance of all these extra necessities, even bear spray. But nothing could have possibly prepared us for encountering a Sasquatch who is very upset to see us in his domain. Thank you.
Oh, Sasquatch. All right, that was from Team Jolly Ranchers. Yeah, sorry about that, Gregory. I listened to the wrong story. He told a story about hiking with a boss and trying not to reveal that he had a lot of mosquito bites in his no. Oh, this is our next competitor. Fantastic, ladies and gentlemen, from Team John Deere's Jean Cardenio from People Are Strange. She told a story about her withering relationship and meeting the man at the center of it.
Several years ago, the person I trusted the most behaved in a way that I didn't see coming. And it took a while to register, but in addition to losing trust in them, even worse, I had lost trust in myself. Trust in my ability to read people and situations, and just in my judgment in general. But 2 summers ago, I was between rehearsals. I'm a musician. And I was nowhere near home, so I decided to stop in this random parking lot and make a recording for my bandmates. So I pulled out my guitar, put my phone on top of the car, and with my back to everything, I played a song. And when I turned around, in the patch of grass behind me was this man and woman, barefoot and dancing. And the woman smiled at me and said, "You're not going to quit playing, are you?" So while they continued to dance, I played 2 more, Brown Eyed Girl and my version of Help by the Beatles. And then I walked over to see what they were up to. They were walking home from the store. They had picked up some road trip food, and we were heading out into the woods the next morning to see what Mother Nature needed, and would be gone for an undetermined amount of time. And then the man asked me if I wanted to join them. And I didn't even know their names, but I just said, I have to work, but thank you. And then without thinking, I don't know if I was just trying to be hospitable or what, but I hear myself say, "Do you need anyone to water while you're away?" And then they turn to each other, and then they look at me and say, "Yes." And so we walk over to their place. It wasn't far. And in my head, I'm thinking, what have I gotten myself into? I don't know these people. I'm nowhere near home, and I have no idea how long they're going to be gone. But we get over to their house, and they show me where the hose is. And in the yard, they have 2 gardens. And in one garden are some typical things like tomatoes and squash. And in the other garden are things I'm not familiar with. And the man says, "This is Jerusalem artichoke. And over here we have a gourd tree. And you know what this is?" And it stood about as tall as me and had leaves the shape of like a star pattern. And this sort of plant is frowned upon in Idaho. And I myself have no personal interest in plants like these. But I just say, "I think I know what it is." And he says, "It's what you think it is." And now I'm not only questioning my judgment, but I'm questioning theirs. How can they just trust me with this information? They know nothing about me. But I find myself there the next day, and on the patio table is a note addressed to me. And it says, "Would you mind filling the bird bath? And also, we've left the south side of the house open in case you want to hang out in there." And I just conclude, they must just trust everyone. But I go back nearly every day, and I care for the plants and grow attached to them. And after 2 weeks, I go to water, and they're back home. And they're super excited to see me. And they invite me in, and I step into the house for the first time. And the man hands me a bag of vegetables from the garden. And then the woman goes on to tell me how much they thought about me, and how they talked about me, and how they would sing to one another, "Won't you please, please help me?" And then she looks at me in this way that just blurs out everything around us. And she thanks me, but not for watering. She says, "We've been working on our trust. So thank you for letting us practice our trust on you," which completely reframed that entire experience for me. They didn't just trust everyone. And they've moved since, but for that summer and fall, I'd pop in, and we shared some dinners and some music, and we spent one afternoon chopping wood. But I learned more than just how to chop wood from them. I learned that trust is something you work on and practice and cultivate, and that sometimes with trust, you just need to take a leap of faith and go for it. And it may not always work out, but in this case, that leap of faith they took in trusting me made me feel like maybe I am trustworthy. And if they could trust me, I can too. Thank you.
Thank you, Jean. All right, moving back over to the Jolly Ranchers. Looks like we have Mark Siegel coming to the mic. Very good, and Mark's story was from Knight, K-N-I-G-H-T, a doctor's story about a patient who turned out not to be the plant he thought he was. Instead of a reverend, he was a pimp.
Back in the late 80s, I joined an anesthesia group in Nashville, Tennessee. We were a multidisciplinary practice, which meant we did neurosurgery, cardiac, pediatrics, and OB. In fact, we had enormous OB services, which I enjoyed greatly. About 5 years into my practice, one of my partners, who happened to be the chief of anesthesia, stopped me in the hall with an envelope, and he said, "You better read this sitting down." Well, it was already open, so I knew that it had already gone to the CEO of the hospital, the medical executive committee, probably some ethics committee, and now it was given to me to read. The envelope was from a law firm, and it was addressed to the CEO of the hospital. So I went to a private place and read through this letter, and it basically started out, "I am so-and-so, I'm a member of a prestigious law practice, I was a patient in your hospital," and went on from there. Needless to say, it wasn't very flattering. So I did my due diligence and went to medical records and pulled out the medical records for this patient, because I knew that I wanted to talk to her over the phone at least. So when I was satisfied that I knew the chart pretty well, I called her on the phone. And I said, I have this letter in front of me. It's not very flattering. I'd like to talk to you about it. And I said, "I'm not really sure I understand what the purpose of this is." And she said, "Well, can't you read? I came in to deliver a baby. I was in a great deal of pain. You were the anesthesiologist on call, and they couldn't find you. I suffered through my delivery, and I'm really pissed off." So I said to her, "Ma'am," because I live in Tennessee, "would it upset you if I told you that the records, these well-documented handwritten records, don't agree with the story that you've told me?" And so, "Well, what do you mean by that?" I said, "Well, you're claiming that you never met me and I was not available, but in fact, at 1 o'clock in the morning on the following date, I put your epidural in myself, and it worked really well. And if you look at your pain scores, we used to use 0 as no pain and 10 as the most amount of pain, your scores were always between 0 and 1. And you may not know this, but these are meticulously documented records, and they show that I came and checked on you about every 30 minutes, and you had a wonderful baby and everything went fine. What is this really about?" And so she said, "Well, the truth is that you denied me the feeling of the baby coming through the birth canal, like my first delivery." And so I was like, "Well, you requested an epidural that's designed to make you comfortable. And by the way, your first delivery was by cesarean section. You've never had a baby come through the birth canal. I'm going to give you a phone number that I want you to write down." And so I gave her some time to write it down. And then I said, "And I'm going to talk to you a minute about what I think this is about. This is about your bill. You went outside of your provider network, and you have a small margin that you still need to pay. And this is the way that you're dealing with this. And I think this is quite unprofessional. And that number that I gave you, that's the number of the Tennessee Bar Association, because you've sent me this threatening letter on your legal letterhead, and I'm going to forward to them unless you pay your bill by noon tomorrow. Thank you.
All right, we just have one storyteller left from each team. And I don't know if the team captains have done this on purpose, but they're both from the same show this last season. They come from King. And here's coming up is Lou Landry, who told a story of uprooting and riding trains.
As a hobo. So a simple law of the universe. You reap what you sow. As a devout Catholic boy, I learned that lesson at home and at church. But there's other laws of the universe. I learned about those later. Laws about forces we don't understand, omens and fates. I'll give you a hint of the first one I had when I was 8 years old. I was walking to Catholic church for my first Holy Communion with my mom and dad, dressed all in white, as we did, all in white. And I could feel above me a bird. And that bird dropped a full load on my right shoulder. But a devout Catholic boy is not deterred from the simple law of the universe to sow right action. So I'm wearing a coat of my right actions, my Eagle Scout Award, my Catholic Service Award, and in my pocket, a medallion for my God and Country Award from high school. But the biggest reward of all was a full ride scholarship to Pomona College. And my parents were so pleased. A future doctor, they wished, or even better yet, a priest. But the law of the universe that I learned about is the arcade machine, the great arcade machine of the universe that sometimes reaches down with a claw, sometimes picks up the teddy bear, or sometimes picks you up and drops you somewhere out of the ordinary. So the first time that claw came down for me in college was through the medium of the raspy voice of Bob Dylan and his protest anthems. Civil rights, opposition to the war in Vietnam and all war. I left college. I gave up my scholarship, but most importantly, I gave up my precious draft deferment given to college students. And the claw picked me up, took me to Chicago to do civil rights work on the west side of Chicago. And while I was there, I was with other community activists, and we heard the call of Dr. King to come to New York City for the first mobilization to end the war in Vietnam. So we chartered a bus, singing "We Shall Overcome," drove to New York City, and found ourselves there gathering on the Sheep's Meadow in Central Park to walk 125,000 strong, shoulder to shoulder, to the United Nations building, while on either side of the street were screaming hard hats. We called them hard hats back in the day. Screaming, "Commie, Pinko, traitor." We continued the walk to listen to Dr. King, and the quote I remember, "I cannot be a silent onlooker while evil rages." So at that point, I realized I'm not going back to Chicago. I don't know where I'm going, but that claw put me next to some radical activists, radical nonviolent activists who were going to walk down to Washington, D.C. I had nothing better to do. So I joined them, and we walked the 240 miles to Washington, D.C. And we stayed in Quaker meeting houses. We had support along the way. I was carrying a sign, bread not bombs, make love not war, end the war. And I told the organizers of the walk that I was ready to turn in my draft card and tear it up in front of the Selective Service Commission. And I did, and made it that night onto CBS TV nationwide.
Thank you, Lou. Lou let me know that it was correct that he's on Team John Deere because John Deere was a Catholic activist, apparently, on a tractor. All right. And also from King, making her way to the stage, is Patti Finley, who told a story about being nurtured by Nat King Cole and dealing with the loss of your companion plant. Here she is, Patti Finley.
Once upon a time, a long time ago, when I lived in La La Land, I had a 5-month-old baby, and I had just closed my real estate office, and my beloved, funny husband was a struggling actor. We were very happy, but very broke. We were about $1,000 a month short of what our expenses were. And I didn't really want to go back to work until my baby was at least a year old. And I went on a few job interviews, and every time one of them would say, "We'd love to have you," I would burst into tears. So my husband planted the seed of greed in my brain and said, "Why don't you go on a game show? You have a great personality. Maybe you'll win enough money so you don't have to go to work for a while." So I tried out for and got on the game show called the Match Game Hollywood Squares Hour. Though some of you know that show. And the celebrities were given questions that they had to answer and hide their answer, and then the contestants had to answer and match the celebrities' answers. Anyway, it was nerve-wracking. It's really scary. It's not like watching it on television. But I watched game shows every day rocking my baby boy in the rocking chair, so I felt pretty confident. I was playing opposite the previous day's champion, and I didn't do very well in the very beginning. They asked a question, something like, what would Cosmopolitan say you should do if you're trying to lure your husband into bed? Wear makeup or no makeup? I had never even read Cosmopolitan, so I said, wear makeup? Wrong. And the rest of the section there went like that until all of a sudden, somehow my opponent got stupid. And every answer that she missed, I got the points for. So I made it to the next round. And the final round was called the Big Money round. And there you had to give an answer that matched one of 3 celebrities that you chose. And the question to me was, fill in the blank, pajama blank. Being a musical theater aficionado, I said, game. Well, Phyllis Diller was one of the ones that I had chosen. And you know, they're unpredictable, these comedians. She said, bottoms. So I didn't get that point. And Charles Nelson Riley said, party. So I didn't get that point. But Richard Klein said, game. So yay, I won. And I won $10,000. So I was well on my way to being able to stay home with my baby. I came back the next day as the returning champion, and I didn't have to go through the previous rounds. I just had to play the big money round. And my opponent that day was a young British gentleman who was lovely, but wasn't really up on all our American colloquialisms and trendy things, etc. So I won again, surprisingly. And that time, I don't remember what the three answers were, but I won about $1,800, $1,850, I think. And that brought me back for a third day. On the third day, I don't remember the winning question, but I was stunned. I couldn't believe that I had won $15,000. That put my winnings at over $25,000, and I thought, wow, I've got that year locked in. I can stay home. The fourth day, I didn't do so well. The question was blank beef, and I said roast. But the big money answer was, where's the? Come on, he said blank. He didn't say blank blank. But I really couldn't argue because I won $25,000, which basically after taxes was the $12,000 I was hoping for. And I won a couple of really lovely parting gifts, but the most surprising gift of all was that I got a year's supply of rice-a-roni. Thank you.
And just as a side note, Patty's baby son is in the audience this evening. And I don't remember which one is which, but one of them was at King performing as Neil Diamond, if you were at that show. I did a show this weekend with Alley Repertory Theater, and one of the audience members said, you know, I looked at your hair during the show, and I just couldn't get Neil Diamond out of my head. I need to go get a haircut. All right, aren't they a beautiful group of people? Look at them. Such great stories. Now, in addition to needing to be nurtured as individuals, organizations also need to be nurtured, and we have been nurtured by our sponsor, who is our sponsor of the flagship series, Keenly. They stepped up and sponsored this show as well. They say you reap what you sow, but most employers don't know what they're planning with their employee benefits. Mystery pricing, surprise bills, confused employees. That's not a harvest, that's a headache. At Keenly, we help you break the cycle. We plant strategies rooted in community and transparency with benefit designs that work as hard as you do and that your team actually understands, like $0 deductibles. Because nobody should need a shovel to dig through their medical bills. Smart benefits, Keenly. Thank you, Keenly. All right, we're reaching our break where it's time for you to find your pumpkin seeds. We also do have City of Good in the back. They're still serving some food if you got hungry during that act. The bar down below. I also will let you know that we used to sell tokens for voting at the show, but because this has served as a fundraiser for the upcoming season, but we stopped doing that because we want everyone to be able to vote equally. What an idea for democracy, yeah? But we could still use your support. So if you are able, you can also use this break to send something to Story Night by texting Story as one word to 44321. Story to 44321. You'll find each of these planters labeled with the team. Just place your little pumpkin seed. You've got about 10 minutes to place your pumpkin seed in one of those pots. And then our volunteers are going to take some time to add up the pumpkin seeds, and we'll find out when we come back which team is moving on for the chance to become Slammer of the Year. And during the break, we're going to hear some more music from Hill Folk Noir. You're so good. All right, first off, let's just start with a big round of applause for all of these storytellers who have shared this evening. And as I said in the introduction, this was a repeat face-off between our team captains, Patti O'Hara and Jessica Holmes, who were both studio guides with Story Night. So if you or your business is interested in having some kind of workshop, storytelling workshop, these are two of the individuals who will come out and facilitate a group experience for you on shaping stories together. In fact, Patti just did a free workshop at the Bishop House just a few weeks ago, and that was a great success. So thank you to both of you for heading up these teams. So I think Jessica revealed that last time that these two met face to face, Patty's team won. So we'll see what the result is tonight, whether Patti gets to maintain her crown or if there's some other event is going to happen. I'm holding the pot here that has all of your pumpkin seeds in it, the one with the most pumpkin seeds. It has been verified by Price, Waters, and Cooper. We have a former employee, I think, of Price, Waters, and Cooper in the audience tonight. But she did not bless the pot. All right, so I'm going to spin this around to reveal the winning team, and we'll see who is going to move forward to compete for the title of Slammer of the Year. The winning team is... John Deere's. All right, so now our judges are going to be listening very carefully because it's up to them to rate each of these storytellers. They are basing it on relevance to the theme, whether they're on time, and also the impact of the story. This time, each storyteller only has 3 minutes to share their stories. Then, after the 5 of them have shared them, we'll have another featured song from Hillfolk Noir while we tabulate the judges' results, and then we'll be able to announce the winner and pass them this beautiful gourd, this Thunder Gourd. All right, who's going to come down first to compete? Okay, here we go. We're starting in the same order with Josh Gaines.
So if you didn't gather, in part 1, did eventually become a teacher, but normal teacher, not cool enough for this blonde that I had married. So we started out easily. We did a little bit in New Zealand, but then that was too boring, and Borat had come out. So we somehow had ended up in Kazakhstan because there were like 4 web pages on the internet back then, so we didn't have a lot of intel on what we were doing. So our first year there, I got to learn to speak Russian because to get to work, I literally had to barter with random Russians and Kazakhs in Russian, like, Izvanichi, you're going this way, Prayama, maybe we do for like 200 ruble, you drive me to school, and they're like, no, and I'd just be out there all day, and eventually you'd get a car, and off you go. But finally, year 2, we got a car. It was a terrible car. It ran, but the lucky thing about being a foreigner in Kazakhstan is they put a big yellow license plate on there so the cops know that they can get bribes from you, which is super fun. So we're driving down the road, going downtown to the grocery store, and we pass a Kazakh police officer. Now, they're on a bit of a budget over there, so I want you to imagine one of those guys with batons at the runway that directs planes, except he's directing me to the side of the road because my bright yellow license plate is driven by the speed limit. And my wife turns to me and she's like, no, just go. I'm like, I'm a rule. I'm like, we gotta pull over, sweetheart. She's like, no, we just go. So off we go down the road. And of course we get stuck at a red light just at the top of a little hill. Next to me pulls in another Russian gentleman who, I don't speak a lot of Russian, but he looks to me and basically, this is a PG-13 audience. He's like, you're totally screwed. They're going to get you. You're like completely screwed. And he's just talking to me in Russian like that I'm just totally hosed. I'm like, this bad. And then lo and behold, car shows up. Whoop, whoop, lights pull over, pulls me over, side of the road, cop gets out. He's like, yes, pulling over for speeding. All right, bye. My other guy is going to get you. I'm like, what other guy? Oh, that guy passed down the hill. Bit of a portly gentleman, doing a bit of a run up the hill. Other cop with the car, he leaves, and here I am sitting in the car with my wife, looking in the rear view, watching a rather large mustachioed man with 2 batons running up a hill on a 95-degree day. So he makes it up to the car. I roll down the window, and I can speak a little Russian, but I'm not going to use a single word because I'm just like, have you ever been in a foreign country? You got that American passport? Not as great as it used to be, but in the day, you could get away with a little bit like, hi, don't speak Russian. He is just tearing into me. Now, on our first orientation at work, we'd gotten a bit of a lecture about don't get in the car with the cops because they want you to get in the back seat. You give them a bit of a bribe. We had one guy that got black vanned and disappeared. The secretary had to pretend she was actually State Department to get him back. So I'm looking at my wife. I'm like, he just wants a bribe. I got to get in the back of the car. He's yelling at us in Russian. I'm not speaking a whole lot. And I go to get out of the car. And any married men know what it's like when you do the wrong thing. And my wife just starts tearing into me. She's just yelling at me so much that the police officer looks at me and he just says, the only English he ever spoke, good luck, gives me back my license and lets us go. So my wife got me into trouble, but she also got me out of it. Love you, babe. Still married 20 years. Let's go.
Na zdrowie! Thank you, Josh. Congratulations on your marriage that started in a lie. All right, and coming up to compete next is Paula Murphy.
Okay, let's recall. Crappy hotel, sun, sore butt, mosquito bites, 2 dogs. Okay, my son could sleep all day. I'm an early riser. So I get up and I take the dogs out. In the next 5 minutes, 3 dramatic things happen. 1, I step on a piece of glass such that it's embedded in my big toe. 2, I start my period. I am 54 years old. I am not happy. Nope. And then I drop my phone and shatter the screen, rendering it useless. This day's going great, right? But I am competent and resourceful and I can fix this, remember? So I go to my room and I open up my laptop and I get us a hotel room in Kalispell where we're headed next. It's a Motel 6. It's over $300 a night. It's all that's available. I make an appointment to get my phone fixed where they say if you make an appointment online, it will be fixed in less than an hour. Fantastic. I schedule it so we have all the time in the world to get there, right? My son can keep sleeping. I'm all happy. I'm relaxed. Oh no, there's a time change. We gotta go now. Get up out of bed. Let's go. My son loves being woken up like that. Doesn't yours? Yeah, so we gotta go now. We get there in time. We make the appointment, okay? The nice young man at the counter says, okay, great, we can fix that. We'll have it for you on Tuesday. It's Friday. Tuesday's not gonna work for me. Nope, you said 1 hour on your website. And he's like, oh, that's not gonna happen. We could maybe do it in 4 hours, but I'd have to talk to my tech. Well, the tech is right there. How about you ask him? He asked him, he's like, yeah, sure, I can do it. Cool, 4 hours. So we head out to a dog park, because what else are you gonna do? Oh, did I mention it's over 100 degrees every day this week? And did I mention the AC in my van does not work? No, this is great, right? So we waste a whole bunch of time, and I talk to my son and I say, hey, look up on your phone the hotel where we're gonna stay so we know where we're going. He looks it up and he says, Mom, did you read the reviews? I say, no, I did not. It's the only place available. He said, I'm not staying there. Say more. Why? He said, okay, but there are multiple reviews that say that people are pounding on their door in the middle of the night, and multiple reviews talking about blood found in their room. Okay, you're right, we're not staying there. That's cool. So now I've got to make up a story so we can go to the hotel so I can get out of the $700 for 2 nights. And while I'm doing that, I say, okay, everybody, get in the van. We're going to go to the hotel. I'm going to get us out of this because I am competent and resourceful and I can fix this. And as we get into the van, my big dog projectile vomits all the way across the bed and my son. Now, can you imagine spending the next 3.5 days in 100-degree heat in a van with no AC smelling like dog vomit? Nope, me neither. We are out.
Thank you, Paula. Hey, I'm also 54 and my period still hasn't started. All right. There's always time for new things. Okay, next up, right in the middle, Mr. Rich Rail.
So, after the first day of deliberations, the jurors all had their suitcases. They'd been warned in advance. We took the elevators down to the basement and got into a caravan of black SUVs, and we drove from the federal courthouse to the Red Lion Downtowner, 4 blocks from my house. And so we go in there, we have a whole floor to ourselves, and the marshals are on either side, and folks are getting along. They've spent 10 weeks together, and I got to watch that unity dissolve over the course of deliberations. We would go for walks in the evening, and then somebody would say, I don't want to go for walks anymore. So that meant nobody went for walks because I had to be with the whole jury because the marshals were there, and a marshal had been killed by the defendant. So we had the meals at places that were secure for the marshals, and they got tired of the same menu. So that didn't work out very well. On Sundays, it would be family day, and they'd bring things to their family. They'd have a, get together, and it was my job to review whatever they brought. So this one guy brings in a stack of books. I go through the books, and I pick out 3, and I push them back at him. And he goes, Of Mice and Men, Red Badge of Courage, Greatest American Short Stories, what's the matter with these? I go, short story, Incident at Owl Creek Bridge, it's a hanging, capital punishment. Red Badge of Courage, there's a firefight in the woods, people get killed, there's blood everywhere. And Of Mice and Men, Curly had to shoot his dog at the end, and there was a shot dog here, which featured very largely into it. If my English teachers could have witnessed this, they would have, I was a little amazed myself. So we get done with that, and we figured the thing out, and they're going in day by day. And one of the guys has a cold, and his remedy for the sore throat is raw garlic. And so they're in this tiny little jury room, and nobody's happy, except for him. So then what we would do is I would take them up on the roof to let them get some fresh air a couple times a day. And one group would walk counterclockwise, the other group would walk clockwise. They would shift alliances, and it was always 5 or 6 per team, and I knew we were getting nowhere. So by day 10, I'm losing my mind. I tell the marshals, I'm going for a run. They go, you can't go for a run? And so I said, I'm going anyway. And they all went with me on the run. It was, a bunch in front and a bunch in back.
Thank you, Rich. Hey, I actually remembered I was on the jury once. It was when I lived in Oregon. I thought, I live in Oregon, I'm going to grow a goatee. I got cast as a juror member in a Richard Kind movie that was filmed in St. Helens, Oregon. So that was I don't remember how we decided, but okay, next up is Jean Cardenio.
In May of last year, after a long drive from Boise to Seattle, I put my name in the hat at a Moth Story Slam. It was my first time at a Moth, and somehow my name got drawn and I got to tell a story. Then a year later, so earlier this year, I got a call from New York. It was Jody Powell from the Moth asking if she could use my story in an upcoming podcast. That podcast came out in July, and a week later, I got a text from Jessica Holmes with a link to a video of my story. It was on TikTok. And I knew this video existed, but I had no idea it would be released. And by 3 o'clock the next day, it was at 750,000 views. And I had no idea this was coming. It hadn't even been out for 24 hours. And as it approached 1 million views, I thought, I better tell my family about this. You see, the story had to do with a failed relationship I had with a woman. And I wasn't out to my mom, and now I was so worried that she was gonna find out, not from me, but from some video on the internet. So I decided with my dad and my brothers that it would be best if I told her in person. So I flew to California. I sat down with her one-on-one. My heart was pounding. I showed her a thumbnail of the video, which was nearing 2 million views. I told her that I wanted to talk to her about it in person, that gender isn't a factor for me when it comes to loving someone, and that people are just people to me. And she listened intently with tears in her eyes. And then she asked, "Is the Moth paying you?" I told her no. She asked more about the relationship, and I said, "I'm okay now, Mom." That night we played poker as a family like we always do. That story reaped more views than I could have ever imagined. And it gave me a chance to talk to my mom about something I wasn't sure I was ever going to tell her. And it gave me this trust in the love she's given me all these years. She loves me because she just loves me. And in a way, since nothing's changed, everything's changed. And to think that this all started because I told that story last year in Seattle. But really, it didn't start there. It started right here in Boise 2 years ago, when I had the guts to put my name in the hat for the very first time at a story night. Thank you.
I'm supposed to be neutral. Just a second, Lou. I gotta get together. Let me tell you, when Jody from Story Night calls you, they aren't nearly as excited as when Jody from The Moth calls. All right, let's see. What are you, number 5? Wow, this is our last competitor, ladies and gentlemen, for Slammer of the Year, Lou Landry.
Well, going back to that peace walk, you know, I told the organizer, I said, I'm going to return my draft card to the Selective Service General Hershey. And so if you want to use it for PR, go ahead. The march was going on to close down the Pentagon. So I thought, I'm going to take the easy way out. I'll just return my draft card. So we made a detour before we went down to the Pentagon, and in front of the Selective Service Commission's office in DC, the sidewalk was lined with reporters, and I didn't realize TV cameras. So I went up to turn back my draft card, to give it back. They blocked the door, couldn't get in. So the reporters are yelling at me, "What are you going to do now, Landry? What are you going to do now? They need a story." So I tore up my draft card and I put it in my pocket. And then that evening, of course, it was on the evening news with Walter Cronkite. The next day, I go to the Pentagon to be part of the demonstration, and 2 men in suits come over to me, and they said, "You're Landry, right?" I said, "Yeah." They said, "Can we talk? We're from the FBI." I said, "Sure." So we sat down on a bench with one on either side of me. And they said, "We heard you tore up your draft card." And I thought, don't they watch TV? So I said, "Yeah, I did." They said, "Can you prove it?" So I took out the pieces and I gave them the pieces of the draft card. And they stood up and they said, "Thank you. You'll be hearing from us." 3 months later, this most wanted man in America shows up. They show up at my parents' house in Miami, Florida, with a warrant for my arrest for destruction of a draft card, which is a felony worth 5 years in prison max. And my mom did what I asked her to do, which was to tell them where I was, because I was a draft resistor, not a draft dodger. And according to Bob Dylan, if you're going to live outside the law, you got to be honest. So they show up. They show up, but not until I was ready to be totally honest, because I was having a panic attack. And so I go to, now the story goes on in terms of an arrest and then a conviction. We don't have enough time, but sometime maybe you'll hear that part.
Ladies and gentlemen, your competitors for Slammer of the Year 2025 from the John Deere, spelled D-E-A-R-S, All right, our judges are busy tabulating their results. We're going to hear a featured song from Hill Folk Noir, and then right after that, we're going to get a preview of what's coming up at late night at the Visual Arts Collective from curator and host Beth Norton. But in the meantime, here is Hill Folk Noir.
There's a rattlesnake in the infirmary. There's a dead man in a bulletproof vest. There's some booty whacking back in the parlor. There's a sing-along for soldiers at war. Marina sitting on an old bar stool in the corner of the old hall. What's the matter with Rita? What's the matter with Rita? What's the matter with Rita? Nobody knows. So I moved a little closer to the corner, tried to get me a piece of her mind. Sneaked a spy of my approach to her, raised the eyebrow above her left eye. Her lips spoke meaningful words to me. I fell silent by the old pool bar. What's the matter with Rita? What's the matter with Rita? What's the matter with Rita? Nobody knows. My first thought was to lay down a cover of lies. My second, throw a grenade and run. My third was to tell her that I loved her, throw my hands into the air and run. But instead I just stood there silent, like the swing outside my grandpa's house. What's the matter with Rita? 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 Nobody knows. What's the matter with Rita?
Thank you again, Hill Folk Noir. Thank you again, Hill Folk Noir. All right, Beth, are you nearby? All right, here, ladies and gentlemen, coming up in October, December, and February, late night at the Visual Arts Collective in Garden City, and here to tell you about what's coming is the host and curator, Beth Norton.
Hi, well, I'm Beth Norton. I'm hosting Late Night, and this is Natalia DiJosia. She's the volunteer coordinator, And yeah. And she's gonna act out our themes. Just to get a little visual. So the overarching theme of the late night season is the holidays stretched. It's stretched because normally our shows are one after another, but this year we're skipping months. So October 13th is our first show. It just happens to be on Indigenous Peoples Day, which wasn't planned. But the theme for that night is Old Ghost. And we'll be celebrating white people everywhere. The next theme is December 15th, I think. It's a Monday. And that theme is New Place. This is all improv, you guys. She's still going. Okay. Okay. And then our February theme, I think it's February 9th. I don't know. It's something like... It's on the postcard. It's Falling Up. Well, that still looked like down to me, but... Okay. Well, one round of applause for Natalia. Just like Natalia's acting out, the themes are very interpretive. So thank you so much. What was the other thing? Oh, we call it late night, but this year I'm so happy to announce that it's also at 7 p.m. because I like to go to bed early too. So we're still accepting submissions for featured storytellers for our December and our February show. We are booked for Old Ghosts, so if you're interested in being a featured storyteller, you can go to the website and there's directions there. Okay, thanks. See you then.
It's still late night in spirit because it's 21 and over only, so we'll just think we're out late. It's like those daytime dance parties that have started up now. You go to the disco at 4 in the afternoon. Yeah, all right. All right, would you guys, Hill Folk Noir, would you mind doing a little underscoring for this part? Just strumming, could be just one of you strumming or whatever you like. I gotta get the trophy. All right, 2025. The judges have deliberated, and I can reveal that the winner this year of Slammer of the Year is... Stories come from the land as well as its people, and I want to acknowledge that we are on the traditional land of the Shoshone-Bannock people. Story Night is supported by public funding for the arts through the Idaho Commission on the Arts, the Idaho Legislature, and the National Endowment for the Arts. We also receive funding from the Boise City Department of Arts and History. Remember, you can listen to podcasts from all our shows, including all the original stories that these folks told on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud. Go to storynight.org and click on podcasts. We also have a radio show. It's Story Night on Stray Theater, which you can hear on the Sunday before our live show from 5:30 to 6 on Radio Boise, KRBX. Thank you to our crew, technical director and podcast engineer, video editor, Stephen Baldassari, somewhere out there. And tonight, a very special addition to our crew. Thank you to our lighting designer, Chaz Gentry. And as usual, thank you to our photographer, Christina Birkenbein. That's Boise Christina. Thank you to our volunteers, our volunteer coordinator, interpretive dancer, Natalia DiJosia. Thank you to our board of directors, several of whom are out in the audience tonight. Thank you to you. Thank you to our story subscribers. Go to our website to become a story subscriber, and your ticket to late night next month will be included. Thank you to the Idaho Botanical Garden for hosting us, and for the moon for peeking out from behind the clouds and showing us that it's not raining on us right now. We're so blessed for that. Again, join us next on October 13th for Story Late Night, the Visual Arts Collective. We will return to Jump in November with a season of shows inspired by emojis, and tickets are available to all those shows now. But right now, I'm very pleased to announce the winner of this Thunder Gourd, and this is the trophy for the 2025 Slammer of the Year. It's been a big year for this person. Not their first time competing in Slammer of the Year either, but this time they win, and it is Jean Cardenio. Jean, come get your trophy. Never mind, I'll go give it to her.
Thank you. I rode my bike. Can somebody bring this to my house for me, please? Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming out tonight. We'll see you at our season of shows. I'm Jody Eichelberger. Thank you for being a part of our story.